It's currently the last week in April, which is about 6 weeks before the last frost date for my area of Alaska. Typically, they say that you can start planting in the ground here about the first week in June. Despite that, though, I'm going to go ahead and start planting today. Even though the temperatures outside have not been all that warm, it is warming up, as I mentioned in my last video. Today's temperature is actually supposed to be close to 50 degrees, though the overnight lows are still in the low 30s. We're not quite at freezing, but we're just a degree or two above that here. But I've taken matters into my own hands to make sure that my soil is warm enough in the garden bed so that I can go ahead and start planting now. The first thing that I did was I covered the garden bed that I want to plant in with some heavy plastic, basically creating a greenhouse effect and warming that soil up. Currently, the soil temperature is right around 40 degrees. The first thing that I'm gonna do is come in with a rake and loosen up the existing soil in the garden bed. So now that I've done that, I'm just going to come back in with a couple inches of Pro Mix, which I'm putting on the top of this, which is a peat moss based growing medium. This is what the local garden centers here recommend that you use. They basically said everything I plant other than one thing should go into this mix. They said that shouldn't go into this mix is rhubarb. If I'm going to be planting that, it should go directly into native soils. And I'm just going to go ahead and use my hands then to mix that Pro Mix into the existing garden soil. And yes, I'm not wearing gloves. I know it drives a lot of you crazy that I'll wear them to do dishes, but that's because the water's boiling. So I'm trying to protect my hands from being scalded. But a little dirt isn't going to hurt me. And I'm not afraid of getting a splinter either, obviously. Nonetheless, once this is done, then I'm coming back with a board just to make sure that that level or that the soil is level and I don't have any low spots that can cause runoff. This will be my third summer planting in these raised beds. I'm really happy with how the soil is looking in here. Originally, I filled these with soil that came out from behind the cabin in the previous garden bed that was here when I bought the property. That soil was nice and rich, full of composted organic material, just lovely soil. And adding in this Pro Mix is, I think, going to help it again this year. One of the things about this garden, though, is that it's not very big. It's only about 2.5 feet across here and 15 feet deep this way and 8 feet across where the camera is sitting. It's L-shaped on the north side of the cabin and it's not in the most ideal location. However, the reason it's here is because I'm still doing work on the back of the property. In fact, just yesterday, my friend was here to help me work on the property some more. He brought over his bulldozer to help pull some trees out of the forest. Those trees are either going to help create fence posts for me so I can fence in the back of the property and put in a proper garden back there, or he will be taking those for firewood for himself, because originally that's how I bartered for his services. Was I told him he could take the spruce that he took down for me if he helped me, and that worked out for him. So he might take some of this, or I might use some of it for fence posts. Either way, though, eventually I'll have a bigger garden in the back. The reason I want a bigger garden is because this garden is just a little bit too small. In fact, it's not a little bit too small. It is actually really too small for what I like to do. Back in Colorado, I had a nice sized garden that was approximately 12 feet across by 64 feet long. I loved that garden. I got a nice harvest of everything that I grew in there. But here I don't have enough space to grow everything that I want to. Last year in this bed, I grew potatoes. This year though, those potatoes are going to be grown outside of these two beds and allow me to get more space for the crops that just have not done well over the last couple of years because they've been crowded out. Things like beets. I have not had a good successful crop of beets here. My beets have come out to be really, really tiny. And so this year, this bed is going to be primarily beets. I am going to be growing seeds that came from this Denali brand. It's an Alaska brand. So I know that these are going to do well here because they're grown specifically or produced specifically for Alaska. So that might help me out too. But I have 3 varieties of beets here. I have Ruby Queen, Golden Detroit, and Bultardi. I'm hoping these do well for me. I love golden beets in particular, but red beets have their place too. Last year when I planted the beets, I created this diamond pattern, basically like a 5-side of a die to plant the seeds in. This year I'm just making small trenches or furrows with the side of my hand. These beet seeds need to go, the ones I planted at that end were only 1/4 inch deep, but the ones that are closer to where the camera is now, they need to go down about 1/2 inch just to soften up their hard outer coating. I soaked these overnight, and I'm just going to sprinkle these in here. The winds are kicking up, so I'm kind of glad that these are damp so that the wind isn't blowing them around as I'm putting them in the ground. But in between the beets that I'm planting, I will be planting some radishes. I've never had good luck with radishes. Typically, I let them go to seed because the radishes put off a scent that repels insects that are not beneficial to the garden. I'm hoping this year by planting these early that it'll be cool enough that I'll actually get some radishes. This is one of my favorite vegetables. I'm also going to be planting 2 varieties of peas. Here I have one that's called Early Frosty. This one will produce a little bit later in the season, and this one, which is called Alaska, will produce earlier in the season. I'm not going to mix the two. I'm going to plant the Alaska on this side closest to the driveway, and this other variety I'm going to plant at the back of the bed here. At the back of this bed here, I'm going to be planting 2 different varieties of kohlrabi. I planted these last year, but I did not get a harvest because something came along and ate them before I could get to them. So this year I'm going to plant them where I can build a little hardware cloth cage over the top of them to protect them from what I assume was a vole that came along and ate these. Needless to say, I was not very happy. This is one of my favorite vegetables. I probably say that about a lot of things, but this is definitely one that I really, really like. It has kind of it's in the Brassica family, so it's related to cabbages and Brussels sprouts, things like that. But it has kind of a little bit of a tart flavor to it, or maybe it would remind me of the stem of a broccoli is what it might remind you of if you were to eat some. So these kohlrabi seeds, as you can see here, they're very, very tiny. They're only going to go in about 1/8 of an inch below the surface. And so I just mix the 2 varieties together here, and I'm just going to kind of broadcast them over the surface here. Now I'm planting way more than I need to grow. I'd rather have too much and thin them out than not plant enough and not get any. These raised beds that I've been planting in really are not all that deep. They're only probably about 16 inches deep, and the bottom half of it I filled up with forest debris. So pine cones, sticks, leaf litter, things like that. That took up a good portion of that, and then just the top portion was filled with soil. And because they're not very deep and that soil has a tendency to become compacted with moisture, I went ahead and dug out these 2 planters, which I had sitting here last year. I have one on this corner and then one on the opposite corner. I also went ahead and drilled some additional drainage holes in the bottom of these, and I mixed the existing soil in with about 25 pounds of sand. So this gives me a really light soil mixture here that has good drainage. And in here, I'm going to plant some carrots. I have 2 different varieties, a Chantenay red corded and also a Danvers. Both of these are good storage carrots. Having a carrot that will last through the winter months, that's what I've been looking for all along. So, and as you might know, carrot seeds are very, very fine and they only need to go in about 1/8 of an inch. Same thing with those radish seeds. When I put the radish seeds in with the beets, I just broadcasted them over and then just patted them into the ground. And that's really all I'm going to be doing here, is I'm just lightly going around and sprinkling these over the top, knowing that I can come back in and thin these out. And then I'm basically just patting these in, kind of roughing up the surface just ever so lightly as I go, making sure that they have good contact with the soil. But mixing that sand in here means that those carrots are going to be able to grow long and straight, and they're not going to be competing with anything else in the garden. All the things that I'm planting out here today are things that are meant to go out before your last frost date. So I'm not worried about the frost coming in and killing off any of the young seedlings. All of these things are frost hardy. The only other thing that I'm going to be planting today are some scallions. I have two varieties, an evergreen variety, and then a Hoshiko is the other one. These actually need freezing temperatures in order to germinate. Luckily, like I said, the temperatures still are reaching that point overnight. They're getting down to about 32. So I'm hoping that's going to be enough to allow these to grow. But I'll be planting these along the front of this bed here. Since the bunching onion seeds do need to stratify, meaning they need to freeze for a short period of time before they'll be viable for germination, I am just coming back in with just the smallest amount of snow that I have left on the property and covering up that seed line, which will hopefully ensure that when the temperatures drop overnight, that those reach a freezing point, so that they will be viable for germination. Then I'm going to show you some other things that I have going on around the property and talk to you about that fire pit and what is going on with it currently. Just want to say thank you to my friend for coming over with the bulldozer to collapse this burn pile and get it moved, because he lent me his little infrared thermal device here, and in the center of it, where I showed you in my last video that it was, about 300 and some degrees, just a couple inches below that, it was registering at about 900 degrees. All right, you can see like some burnt, right? All the charcoal in here. Look at how it is now. And there's some red in there. That red is about 850 degrees, 900 degrees underneath where it had been burning just a day or so ago. And again, there's ice just a few feet from it. See? Frozen ground. You can see the ice still in the ground. Frozen ground. Fire, ice, fire, ice. And as soon as he moved the pile, that instantly took to flame. Can you see it smoking? Before that was dust. That's actual smoke. Just moving the fire or the pit is causing smoke to rise from the carbonous material that's still within it. So right now it's ash, but a second ago, like I said, that was smoke. Because again, it's about 900 degrees inside of that pit, just on the other side of the bulldozer there. Just pushing around. Now we have smoke. This is, or flames. This is why I didn't want to break this up the other day when it was just me, is because I knew that that is exactly what would happen. And thanks to him doing that, it is no longer a concern for me. It's no longer burning. It's not registering any heat because we took the hottest portion and put it on the outside, and then it's extinguished itself. So I'm really glad that he was able to come over here and help me move this, as well as drag all these trees out of the woods. As I mentioned, he'll either be taking these trees for firewood, or I'll be using them for fence posts, as I plan on fencing in the back of the property here to protect myself and Kenai from bears. The bear that I had on the property last week is not the first bear that I've had come through this property. When I first moved here, I had a grizzly that was coming through the property almost every single day. At that point, I didn't have trail cams or security cameras up, and I wasn't able to get him on camera, but I would see a fresh set of tracks every day that I came out. So last year I had a number of black bears that came through the property. And like I said, this year so far, I've only seen the one grizzly. And to be honest with you, that's the only wildlife I've seen since last July. I haven't seen any moose, fox, not even the ermine was around this year. I don't want to take any chances though, and that's why I'll be fencing in the back of the property, and also so I can get that proper garden put in back here. But let's go, we'll take a walk up this way, and I'll talk to you about how those mosquito magnets are doing. Do you see who's spying on me while I'm filming? Anyhow, I wanted to talk quickly about the mosquito magnets. Let me just tell you that this was the best purchase I could have ever made on the property. I'm very happy that I bought these because they're doing a fantastic job of controlling the mosquitoes. I have this one here, which I set up in last week's video. And then I have another one back behind the cabin, right below my bedroom door. Usually the screen door that leads out of my bedroom towards the back of the property is covered in mosquitoes. But after I put out that mosquito magnet, I'm not seeing any mosquitoes on that screen door. And it's only been out there 2 days, but here's how many it has captured so far. And this one right here that is between the outhouse and the woodshed, right next to the garden, so you probably heard it while I was filming out there. Look at how many it's caught in just probably, 4 or 5 days? That's a lot. So again, I'm very, very happy with the mosquito magnets. Out of all the mosquito control options I've tried so far, I would say this one is quickly becoming my favorite. I've moved into the bunkhouse so that I'm out of the wind, but I want to touch on a comment that I received regarding the products that I show on my channel. The individual was not very happy that I am showing you products that I'm receiving from manufacturers or sponsors free. I don't receive anything for free because I'm not sponsored. I'm not affiliated with anybody out there. Anything I show you on this channel, I'm showing you because it's something that I use around my property or my cabin. It's all things that I bought with my own money, things that I've budgeted for. And I show you these things because I want to maybe enlighten you onto something that maybe you didn't know. For example, those mosquito magnets. Before moving to Alaska, the only knowledge I had of dealing with mosquitoes was the DEET sprays. That was it. But when you move up to a place that has mosquitoes, you start looking for ways to alleviate them and making your life easier. And if I can make your life easier by showing you something that I've bought with my own money and providing you with a little bit of information about it, then I see no harm in that. But I am not making 1 red cent off of showing you any products on my channel. If I was, you'd be the first to know, because at a very brief moment in time, I did have an Amazon affiliation. I no longer am doing that. But when I was, you would see a link in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, that says includes a paid promotion. But I stopped doing it because I don't want to be a salesperson. To me, when you're sponsored, it seems somewhat inauthentic, right? It's not genuine. You know they're being paid to promote that product. A lot of times they're getting a kickback when you buy that product, so it's in their best interest to give it a glowing review so that you will buy that product. But I'm giving you honest feedback about the things that I have bought. So I'll get off my soapbox. I just want to tell you that other than the gifts that everyone sends me, you, the viewer, sends me, I am not receiving products for free. And again, I'm not looking to make any money off of you. But there are people out there who do enjoy supporting the channel. And if you would like to do that, there are ways that you can do it without me taking on sponsorships. And that would be the fact that I have a YouTube membership page and I have Patreon. And those are set up as donations. So all the levels, from the very least expensive to the most expensive, they'll receive the same perk. So if you want to support the channel in that way, which I'm not necessarily asking you to do, if you would like to do it, that's great. It does help me to get the camera equipment and software and keep my music subscription going so I can include some music and some stock footage every now and then on my videos. But other than that, really all I care about is that you watch the videos, that you enjoy them, and that you get to see what life is like for me here. Other than that, I'm not looking to make 1 red cent off of you. Just give the video a thumbs up. That helps me more than anything. All right, I've talked enough about that. There's another reason why I'm in the bunkhouse, and thank you for letting me just touch on that briefly, because I figure if one person thought that, maybe others do too. I apologize if my videos are coming off a little sales pitchy. That's not what they were intended to be. However, like I said, I'm in here for another reason, and that's because my friend dropped off his dump trailer. And so I'm going to begin to tear apart the bunkhouse today and get as many things as I can into that dump trailer so that I can get these things off the property. The very first thing I'm going to do is take apart this bed platform, which has about 1 million screws in it. I want to get the biggest pieces out of here first and walk them into the dump trailer. So then I can just start throwing smaller things on top of it. And some of this plywood might actually still be usable. I'll have to see once I get it all taken apart. Not even the same size screws. This was held down with 1 million screws on top of the pieces of plywood that were on top, and luckily there weren't that many nails, but there's a nail in that back corner closest to where the camera is, so I'm probably going to knock the camera over doing this. Or not. Luckily, these are some pretty decent size pieces of OSB and plywood and some pretty stout timber or lumber underneath it. So at least I'll get some scrap wood out of this that is usable. Well, I got all the plywood off the top of it, but these are all put together with ring shank nails, which means I'm going to have an impossible time getting this frame broken apart. I might have to get the oscillating tool out here and cut these apart. Well, at least I know they had a well-built bed, but a bed no more. Oh, one down. That's a start. Well, with the bed frame down, I can now start taking out this air mattress and everything that was stored underneath it, and then start to clear out the rest of this bunkhouse. With that, I'm going to end today's video, but I do want to thank you for watching. I want to thank you again for all of your support. And that means by just watching these videos and giving them a thumbs up if you've enjoyed them. If you made it this far, chances are you've liked what you've seen. I'll see you again next week, hopefully in the comments of this video and next week's video. Either way, I'll be back next week, and I'll be doing something away from the cabin. So I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, please stay safe and take care.